Welcome to the Bleeding Hearts Club, where we alchemize pain into something beautiful together. I'm your co host, Shroot. I'm an astrologer.
And I am your co host, Stevie. I'm a tarot reader, Reiki practitioner, death doula, and mental health professional.
Love it. So, today we are going to talk about exploring a different dimension of tarot and astrology than what you would typically see out there, and ultimately why Stevie and I are self reflective practitioners instead of predictive ones. So, I'm so excited about this topic because it is something I'm really, really passionate about. As an astrologer, I got into astrology from a self-reflective lens instead of a predictive one because I found that um, spending all of my time, using the astrology to be like, oh yeah, I think this is what's going to happen next, or I think based on the transits upcoming, like this is what's going to happen during this season. And I just felt like I was spending so much of my time planning or predicting and not enough time paying attention to what was actually happening to me or what was actually going on. And I just found that I was getting the, you know, most useful to me, most practically applicable results to me when instead of looking ahead and guessing what was going to happen, if instead I looked back and I said, oh, last month this was the astrology and this is what happened. What is the meaning that I can make out of those things? And so I found that to be like a really effective way to practice astrology. And so the reason for that is because ultimately, in any given chart, let alone your own birth chart, there's an infinite number of possibilities that are held in any one chart, let alone when you start stacking them on top of each other. So it's like when you start looking at, predictions and things like that, it's infinity times two or infinity times three, depending on how many charts you're looking at. And, I don't knock predictive astrologers. I think that there is a wonderful space, and I really commend predictive astrologers who are able to give people accurate predictions that help improve their lives. And I think a good use for predictive astrology is if you have to set a date for something and you're like, oh, is this the right date to set? Like, it's great to consult a predictive astrologer to get some of their insight on that. So I definitely like am in community with many predictive astrologers. I'm not knocking predictive astrology as a field, but I definitely think that when amateur or like aspirational or like intermediate people who are interested in astrology from a hobby perspective, when that kind of mentality tries to approach predictive astrology, it can lead to rumination, it can lead to anxiety, it can lead to just like taking yourself out of the present moment and taking yourself out of your body and also disconnecting you from your innate, wisdom and intuition that comes from within you. And so for me, the way that I like to approach astrology is helping people to cultivate self presence in the face of self abandonment. So, the opposite of abandoning yourself and the opposite of dissociating from your own intuition and inner wisdom and latching on to, predictive astrology as like a coping strategy. I like to help people bring them back into their bodies using astrology. And I also like to use astrology to help people cultivate self compassion in the face of self judgment. And so I've found that this kind of practice of looking back and then using the data that we gather from what has happened to you to then say, okay, here's maybe the context to help you understand what's going on right now. And then in turn, going forward, here's what you can prioritize based on all of that data that will then lead to, you feeling grounded, present, fulfilled, and feeling like you're moving forward in your life. So like that's kind of like my approach and why I feel like it's so important to at least begin with having a great understanding of a reflective perspective before you really like lean into predictive elements. And I also just wanted to touch on like um, the generalized predictive content that's out there, like people who put up readings like, oh, your sign, this is what, predictive is going to be for the month. Like, oh, the Twitter threads, the Instagram posts of like, this is what the full moon is like for you based on your sign. Um, those can really be kind of a slippery slope, especially when it comes to this idea of handing your agency away, and um, taking away the control that you have over your life. The control at least of how you respond to your own life. And it can be a little bit of a slippery slope of like, constantly seeking out this kind of confirmational content out there that will help you feel, in a short term, it helps you feel okay, like I'm okay right now. Like essentially, I think what a lot of people look for in that content is like, just tell me I'm going to be okay. Just tell me if there's something I should really be scared of, let me know so I can be scared in advance and I don't have to be shocked. Like, but I think in the long term, what that does is it teaches us to look outside for self-acceptance, for safety within ourselves, and instead of looking inward. And so I really encourage to stay away from that type of content. And I'm not knocking astrologers who post that kind of content, but I definitely think from the consumer perspective, it is potentially very harmful to your mental health in the long run. And so it's worth checking in with yourself and asking yourself, why am I consuming this content? And what is this content doing for me? And how is it affecting me in both the short term and the long term? Because I understand in the short term, I've done it myself too, even as a professional astrologer. Sometimes if I'm feeling really overwhelmed on a full moon and I see somebody say, oh, full moon for your sign, here's what it says, I'm looking. You know, but I encourage people, when you're looking, look at it from a self-reflective standpoint. It's like, oh, okay, like, let's say, because I'm an Aquarius rising, I look at, rising sign stuff. I don't look at sun sign stuff. Because the horoscopes are written from the perspective of the rising sign. So they'll be more accurate if you look at your rising sign as opposed to your sun sign. And when I'm looking at Aquarius, it's like, okay, like, the thing that it said, oh yeah, like this full moon is going to be about, your relationship to yourself and your relationship to, like, your person, like how people see you and your first impressions or whatever. And like that's what the thing says. And I look back at my experience of the full moon, and it was so surrounded in community, and it was so surrounded in love for, my loved ones and my chosen family, and just the fact that I feel so held and supported. And it wasn't actually about me and my relationship to myself. Then I'm not looking at that, and I'm not denying my own inner wisdom, and my own experience, and saying, oh, yeah, that must be what it's about. And then I go start looking for, oh, yeah, where was it about myself? It's like, okay, I take that as like a benchmark of like, does that resonate with me? No, it didn't. Okay, I'm moving on. Like, and that's also these astrologers who do the predictive work, they say, like, if it doesn't apply, let it fly, right? Like take what resonates, they're generalized stuff, your own specific chart is going to have so many other nuances in there that are not going to be able to be covered by a general reading. So I really encourage, if you're a intro, beginner, hobbyist astrology fan, stay away from the predictive stuff. I encourage that, especially if you find it affecting your mental health. I encourage you to stay away from it, and I encourage you to look more into what has happened in the past. So one thing you can do is you can see a post where you're like, oh yeah, that was a prediction, bookmark it, and then after the fact, maybe like a week or two after the fact, come back and say, like, have a reflective moment. Did those things happen? Did you resonate with that? Is that a reflection of your reality? And use that as like a tool to develop your understanding and relationship to astrology. So that way you're centering your own inner wisdom instead of um, disconnecting from your own inner wisdom to secure like a feeling of safety or a feeling of soothing your anxiety. So that's my spiel about that. What
Wow.
do you think, Stevie?
Looking back, you I'm like thinking of me as a 16-year-old,
Yeah.
just always checking Yahoo
Oh,
horoscopes.
that's so real. Wow.
Oh
Asia.
my God. Oh my God. Before I even knew what like rising signs and moon
Yeah.
signs and all that stuff,
Mhm.
it really resonates me because I was like constantly looking. I was constantly seeking some external validation, maybe, but also knowing what to expect. Surprise, I ended up having OCD because I really struggled with not knowing what was going to happen and not I hated not feeling in control of my own life, my own experiences. And, I'm sure trauma has something to do with that. Um, I fear that I'm still the kind of person who will watch a movie or a show and just Google, does this person die? I need to know. I need to be in control in some aspects of my life. But when I was so caught up in these horoscopes and tarot readings, that's exactly what was happening to me. I was seeking out some, like, I just needed to know. And then if it didn't happen, I'd be like, well, what's all this? Like, I was disappointed, or I not even disappointed, but I was constantly holding my breath. If I was in a relationship with somebody and Yahoo horoscope said you're going to get into a fight, I was holding my breath waiting for that fight to happen, and if it wasn't happening, I would probably do something to like pop the bubble to make it happen. Um, and it was not a good feeling. And I think it's the same when I got my hands on angel cards, which are also, I guess, called oracle cards. Um, I was doing that, seeking the yeah, confirmation. Is this gonna happen? Yes or no? Is this gonna happen? Yes or no? I really want this to happen. Is it gonna happen? Yeah. Like, no, yeah, it really took me out of the present moment. It really took out any trust in myself, trust in my intuition, trust in just that life is going to move the way it's going to move and things are going to happen the way that they're going to happen. I feel like it instilled hypervigilance in me, constantly comparing what the horoscope said, what the angel card said versus just living. So I'm really connecting to that young adolescent neurotic self. And I actually stepped away from looking at horoscopes for a really long time because of it, or tarot cards because of it. So yeah, I'm living proof, y'all. This is my testimony.
Yeah. I had the opposite experience, funnily enough, because when
Oh.
I would see the horoscopes in the newspaper as a child, my parents were like, "You should read the newspaper." And I was like, "I'm literally in the third grade. Like, what do you
Mhm.
mean?" Like, so I'd pull out the comics, right? And they would have the horoscope underneath the comics. And every day I'd read it. And again, I also read for my sun sign because I didn't know that they were written based off of rising sign. And so, and obviously I didn't know what a rising sign was. And I would just be like, these are never like, what is this? Like, I had so much like disdain for astrology back like when I was a kid. And I just felt so like, no, like nothing in the sky can tell me who I am or what I'm doing. Like I was one of those people for a long time. And I have a blog post about how I accidentally became an astrologer because it's true. Like I fell into this even in the business of it completely backwards. Like it was never an intention I set because I am a skeptic from the very beginning. So had a very strong sense of like I am who I am and nobody can tell me who I am better than me. Like that was something as a child that I had a very strong sense of. And then obviously life trauma stuff happens. And when I became disabled, like so much of my identity was rooted in my physical ability because I was like very hyper, I was very active, I was very like couldn't sit down, as hyperverbal, like so all of these things were a part of my identity that I thought were made up me. And when I became disabled at 20 years old, I'm suddenly bedridden and I can barely talk and I can barely walk and I'm in excruciating pain all the time. Like, you know, I'm like, who am I? If I can't be, the active, loud, passionate person that I've always been, then who am I? And so that identity crisis happened at the same time that I was looking at memes on Tumblr. And a lot of astrology memes would come up, and I'd be like, okay, like they're saying this is a meme for Venus signs. What is a Venus sign? So then I went and looked up my chart and okay, I'm a Venus and Scorpio. Okay, let me look at the Venus and Scorpio meme. Wait, that's really accurate. Like, and it was at a time where it was like all these things I had associated with my identity were no longer things I could associate with my identity, but somehow the more detailed approach to astrology of the chart breakdown, like that resonated. It was like, oh, I still found me inside of this whole huge flux that I was in. And so it was like, I found it as like a way of reclaiming my connection to myself. And like, so I kind of like backed into it and I was like a skeptic. I read about this in my blog post. I'm like, I don't want to go into all the details here, but it was very fascinating. Like my journey from being like 100% skeptic to then understanding that it doesn't really matter whether I believe in astrology or not. What matters is that it is a really, really powerful tool that offers lenses of analysis that helps me make context and make sense of my life and help me decide what I want to prioritize in my life and what I want to focus on. So it feels like the way that I use astrology, it put me back in the driver's seat of my own life when disability and chronic illness completely had knocked me off course. So that's like there's I think it's just so interesting, like there's so many different ways to have a relationship to astrology, and so I had a brief window of time right before I started this business where I was looking to the predictive stuff, and I had the same experience of the anxiety of the wanting control because I had a lot of I was really fearful of, I was getting ready to graduate from college and I didn't like I can't work a full-time job. So I was kind of at this crisis of like, what do I do? And so I was looking to those predictive things to help me find security, and I just got fed up. I was like, this isn't helping me. And this is like not even how I got into astrology. I got into it from a self-reflective standpoint without actively naming it as such. And so then I was like, okay, I trust my own approach to this. And that eventually turned into Shroot. Like I would just give readings to my friends from that perspective, and they would be like, this kind of changed my life. Can I pay you? And I was like, well, if I can't work a regular job, what if I did let people pay me? So that like it just for me it was so backwards and it was so like not about like the predictive element of it was never the thing that like got me. It was always the reflective element. And so I just like, yeah, I wanted to share that perspective as like a contrast to CV because I think that it's so important that we examine our relationship to these tools, and they work for us. We don't uh, pledge our agency and allegiance to them. What about tarot?
Oh my goodness. Tarot. I
Tarot.
got my first tarot deck when maybe I was 12.
That's so
Um,
interesting.
it was gifted to me by my brother's girlfriend at the time. And I looked at it and I was like, I'm gonna put this in my closet. And then I forgot. And then I'm pretty sure my mom threw it away because I've never seen it ever since. Um, yeah, I was really into like, witchy stuff when
Hmm.
I was in middle school. And yeah, but then I just like didn't use tarot for a really long time until I got to college. And then someone was like, do you want to use these angel cards? I said, okay. And then that's how I got super obsessed.
Mm.
I never got a deck for myself
Okay.
until 2020.
Oh
Um,
wow.
until 2020. And I was instructed to do so when I was
Right.
in,
I remember that.
yeah, when I was in a reading with a santero who one of the main things that he told me was that I needed to start using the cards to communicate with my ancestors and my guides. And my God, I remember just going down a rabbit hole looking at every single kind of tarot deck and sending it to Shroot and sending screenshots and thinking, this is so cute. And like, I'm not going to do tarot readings for anyone until I feel really strong about my like ability. And then I just didn't do that. I wanted to read.
I
I
was like,
needed
when you're ready, read for me, please.
um
And it was like a couple
yeah,
months later, you were like, yeah, okay, let's do it.
yeah, I like made a list. I feel like I posted on Instagram like I'm practicing
Yeah.
who wants a reading, who wants a free reading, and it was really cool. But yeah, I think I was part of the reason why I wanted to like ground into it and feel really strong about it was because I see tarot readers all the time on Instagram and TikTok, and it's just fast and it's like they're so quick. They are very intuitive. And I feel like I got this message that I had to be so obscure and so specific in what I say, as though if it were general, then people, the skeptics, would be like, you're full of shit. And like, yeah, it's just this like mumbo jumbo, whatever people say. I don't know. Um, and for me, that was just affirming of my deepest fears of like showing up and trying to help and everybody else being like, you're dumb, you shouldn't be doing this and whatever. um so yeah, but I think one of the main things that I really like and feel grounded in my readings with people is that I tell them it's not a performance. Like I am not going to say that you're going to meet the love of your life on like the third full moon of the year, those obscure things. And Would love to. That's so cool if I could be predictive and I can, I guess, channel that imagery or, say those things, because I honestly feel like that's what a lot of people are coming to tarot for. They want to know, is this going to happen? How is this going to happen? Is this a yes or a no? And I don't know. Like I really don't know. So my approach to tarot is also very self-reflective, and it's grounding us into where you're at in the current moment and just taking a look, like, what is happening, what is on your mind, what was happening before that, and like, how is that impacting how you are right now. And with this information and the context of these cards, how can you plan to move forward? Because we just don't know. I can't tell you. I can channel images and I can channel messages, but only if they come to me. I can't make those promises. um and it's only like, those are the obscure things sometimes. Like, that's when do you want to build a snowman is coming to me for some reason in this tarot reading. But it's not specifically saying you have to do this and this. It's just really giving you information to feel empowered to, I don't know, that you can just move through it and you're not at the mercy of other people or whatever situations are happening in your life, or at the mercy of whatever transits are happening.
Or your own
So yeah,
fear,
yeah, your own fears too.
your own
It's
distorted perception.
yeah,
That's what
releasing.
you excel at. I'm like, Stevie's not going to name it, but I will. That is what you see Stevie for as a reader. Stevie will tell you exactly where you have yourself fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
exactly, with such precise level of detail, you wouldn't even realize it yourself. And then when Stevie says it, you're like, that's so true. I do that.
I try my best.
Yeah, you're so good. You're like spot on with everybody. Anybody, I know anybody who's ever gotten a full reading from you, feels that way. I'm so confident. And I've seen
Yeah.
it in action in our joint readings. So I'm like, I know both the ones we give ourselves and the ones that we offer as a reading. I'm like, I've seen Stevie in action every time. Stevie just will get you right in the gut, right in the thing that you're
I'm,
not confronting.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Curious.
Yeah.
Making some observations and
There's some
seeing what
questions.
questions.
Yeah.
I got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like my approach to tarot is just being with yourself. Being with yourself while another person is holding space for that. That person being me.
Yeah.
Um
You're so good at that. Everybody feels so safe with you. It's incredible.
I hope so. But yeah, I really see working with tarot as just, I mean, these are just another mirror. These are
Mhm.
just another like portal into what's already happening in your life. And I feel like people already know. Like, when we go through these cards, they really already know what, it's something that they've been thinking about already, or it's something that they have been trying not to think about that just comes to the surface. And the cards are going to show you what needs to be seen. And I like tarot because it's just like, it feels ancestral to me. I don't know what my ancestors did, but I feel like the practice of being vulnerable and having that space held by someone else for you to like see a reflection of yourself, to feel, to bear what's on your heart, like what's weighing heavy on your heart, and to kind of release that and transmute it and call in just a more grounded and empowered sense of self. So that whatever happens, you know what to do. Like, either you know what to do because of your intuition, or because you thought about it already and you have some sort of game plan. And yeah, so it just feels like an extension of, for me anyway, an extension of what my ancestors were doing for a very long time that maybe got lost. And I'm just picking it back up. Yeah. I'm also, I'm a therapist, I'm a social worker. So I'm going to bring that in, not fully, like it's not a therapy session. Sometimes I call it therapy, but it doesn't spell the way that I want it to. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's not therapy, but I am bringing in my like framework of mental health in these sessions as well. So there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. But yeah.
It never feels overwhelming either, which I find so interesting, where every single tarot session I've had with you, it's like we're always talking about something I don't want to talk about. And it's like something that, and that's actually, I think, what I use tarot for personally. Like when I pull my own tarot, like I don't think I have a cultural practice connection to it. And I don't think that I can see that in some people though. Like a lot of the tarot readings I've gotten from people, whether they're professional readers or not, like I can feel just certain sense of ancestral resonance in them where it's just, such a connection. It's like a heritage thing. Like it's a connection to
Mhm.
something. And I don't know that I have that. But I like to use tarot to be like, what am I not considering here? What am I avoiding? What part of myself am I not holding space for and witnessing? And I learned how to do that from Stevie, because that is what Stevie does in all their readings. And um, it just like I used to be really before I started reading with Stevie, because I had gotten like my first tarot readings probably like 2016 maybe, from a friend. And I had a deck sent to me by a friend, another friend in like 2017. No, I think it's 2018. And I had just the Rider Waite, standard deck, and I was so scared of it. I had a lot of anxiety around it. I just thought, oh, I shouldn't pull for myself because I think I was scared of pulling wrong. I was scared, but again, it was because of my own connection to my intuition. It was very damaged, and I felt because so much about tarot is interpretive, and it's a lot less structured than astrology, and so I loved the structure of astrology. I felt so much safety in that, because I felt like, um, a chart of what's happening in the sky and how it affects my chart is so much less there is still a lot of subjectivity in there, but it's much less subjective than a tarot pull that I do for myself, and so I had so much, it was so like full body fear. Like it would just, I was so scared of tarot for so long. And it was, I think, I didn't actively realize this, but I think it was the readings with you where you just create such a safe space to talk about those things that we're so scared of. And so it was only by 2020 that I started softening that fear. And I bought a deck that I felt like I connected with, which is the 13th Press Marigold Deck. And um like even then, like that deck a little scalding. Like that deck will read your ass. So I was a little bit scared for a while of it too, but I just kind of grew into viewing tarot as a chance to show my shadow self to myself and a chance to hold space for what are the things that I don't want to acknowledge and what are the things that I'm, in my head at this level, but what is like the subconscious things that are driving that patterning. And that was something that Stevie taught me. So um it's just so transformative when you let out those fears in a shared safe space. And I've learned how to do that now with my journal, where I can journal of those things that come up. um they become so much smaller, they become so much more manageable. You're able to walk around and see it from like a 360 perspective, as opposed to being in a cloud of it, in your own, when you kind of don't name it and voice it. And so yeah, I think the way Stevie uses tarot is just such a safe space to gain so much perspective about the things that you're avoiding or you're scared of. I just admire that so much. That's so beautiful.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Ugh, yeah, the Marigold Tarot deck. Mine and Shroot's like first
Yeah.
real tarot decks that we chose
Yeah.
and that we connected with, and it is cutthroat. She's my girl.
Yeah.
Like,
I ride
I,
for her. And she rides for me, but she rides with knives. Like
that's literally
she is
daggers.
strapped.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just I love that deck. It
Hmm.
is everything
Hmm.
to me.
Yeah.
And uh
I feel a genuine ancestor connect. That was, I think, one of the reasons I loved it, was because the imagery is rooted in a South Asian perspective, and that I think was the thing that made me connect to it the most, where um it felt I felt so seen in it, and I felt like I could see my ancestors in it, and I like do connect with my ancestors using that deck, and I just like feel like so proud of my people, and I have plenty of reason not to feel that way. And I feel like that deck goes a long way to allow me to connect to the parts of my culture and lineage that I do feel most proud of. And it's so beautiful. Like, oh, I love it. I have like posters of it in my room on my altar. I'm a big fan of the artwork, and I just love I think it's very Scorpio of us to love a skeleton deck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just love that imagery of like, I think both Stevie and I are passionate about having a connection to your ancestors, having a connection to the idea of you as an ancestor, the time that comes after you, and just like we don't really feel an avoidance around that topic. And so I think I love that about that deck, that it allows us to call that in as part of our self-reflective practice, and it allows us to look at the decisions that we make on a time scale that is much larger than just this one moment, or like this one decision. It's like, okay, like how does this like influence the trajectory of our lives, but also the trajectory that comes after us, and how does that connect to the trajectory that comes before us? So like my kind of, it's not really a tagline, it's just like I put it on my website, on my homepage, is like so much of like my practice is rooted in understanding the past so that we can change the future. And I think that using tarot and astrology in these self-reflective ways allows us to like maximize the amount of agency that we have in our lives. So there's so many things in our lives that we can't control, especially with capitalism and all of the structural barriers of oppression and how much things are changing right now, how uncertain things are. But what we can control is our relationship to ourselves and how we treat other people. And when we do have decisions that we can make within the constraints of these systems of oppression, like what are those decisions that we make and why do we make them? And so I think that's where astrology and tarot can come in as really powerful points of reflection that help us make decisions from a place of self-trust and trusting that we can carry ourselves through whatever comes next. So what are the ways that we show up for ourselves and care for ourselves so that we can make decisions that are in alignment with fulfillment for us and our highest good and the highest good of all involved? And one thing I really want to emphasize too, and this is, I think, like the most important thing, if you're interested in tarot and astrology and it also can be a source of anxiety for you, I think the biggest thing that I would say is just remember that the universe unfolds around the decisions that you make. So yes, there's so much out of your control with the structural oppression and with capitalism, and if you're like a student and you're limited, or you're limited by your job, or any of these types of things, like yes, all of these things are limitations, but within the confines of the decisions that you have control over, there is no like objective black and white, right or wrong. There is only the decision that you make and the cascade of events that unfold because of that decision. So there's always a point in which you can turn the ship around. There's always a point in which you can, obviously there's consequences you may have to navigate, but there is never this point of like, oh, I've gone too far and like I can't change course now, And even if you have material reasons to think that, in the long scale of your life, it's not true. Ultimately, the universe unfolds around the decisions that you make. And so remember that when you're feeling like, oh, I don't know, should I do this on this date or maybe this date, like the moon is here, like would that make a difference? Or am I going to be punished if I somehow pick the wrong date, or if I somehow pick the wrong decision? Like, I think a lot of cultures do promote that fear of punishment, and just remembering that, yeah, ultimately, um it's neutral. The universe is neutral on stuff like that. It's just simply, you know things will unfold the way they unfold based on the choices that you make. So really own your power in that way.
Wow. Some of the things you were saying really align with the cards I
Oh yeah,
pulled.
that's so true. That's a good segue.
It is a good way. I was like, ooh, okay, y'all. You ready for this? You
Let's
ready
do
for these
it.
cards? They're kind of a read.
Yeah, I'm excited for them. We're in the Virgos groove, like
Mhm.
happy Virgo season.
It's here. All right, let's get into it. Okay. I pulled three cards. I am using oh Lord, I don't know how to say it fully. Um, I'm using a tarot deck. I'm gonna hold this up. I don't know if you can see it, but it's called Tarot Yowali Ehecatal, or wait, no, Ehecatl. Um, that is in Nahuatl, which is an indigenous language from Mexico. The artist and the author of this tarot deck, their name is Chikome Itzquintli Amatla Bali. I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best. This is a different language, but an ancestral language. So, which is why I push myself to try my best in front of people.
Mhm.
Um, they're also known as Mi Corazon Mexica on Instagram. It will be in the show notes. Everything in this deck is like hand drawn and painted, and it's just so beautiful. So I'm just plugging that
Yeah,
right
you
now.
can check out the spread, the imagery of the spread. We encourage you to look at this one, and you can find it either on our Instagram, it'll get posted this week, or on the YouTube video if you're not watching it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, Shroot.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off. The first card that I pulled, oh, I love this card so much. Just in any deck, I pulled the Fool. It's in Spanish and in Nahuatl, so I'm gonna try my best. But the Fool, El Tonto, and Chocholoqui, and it looks like this. So it is this person who is draped in just like a white loin cloth. Oh, and it has like a little flower on it. They're wearing a white, some sort of like white sheet, white drape over their shoulders. They have a knapsack, and they're like playing the flute. They're on a cliffside, and behind them is a little chihuahua. And I don't know if you can see it. Where
I
are you?
can't, but that's so cute. I've seen it
Right
myself.
over
Oh
here.
yeah. Oh, that's
That I looked at that and I was like, that's so me.
yeah, true.
I love my chihuahuas. I love them so much. So, if you are new to tarot and don't really know the major arcana, the Fool is the first card of a tarot deck. It's in the major arcana and it's marked by the number 0, the digit 0. I don't know why it feels weird to call 0 a number.
It is a number, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But in the story of tarot, the Fool is the storyline that we're following. So like everything is like it's their journey. So in many ways, we are the Fool, which I'm okay with. It's a card on embarking on a new journey, just greeting the great unknown with excitement and sometimes arrogance, but I do feel like you need some level of arrogance to
Audacity.
yes, you need the audacity to just try, to just put yourself out there. Um, it's a journey that represents new experiences, new opportunities, personal growth, by trial and error, and maybe even trusting and allowing yourself to be led by your own intuition.
Mm.
So rationality, don't know her.
Mm-hmm.
In this card, it's like really letting yourself dream and believe that there are outcomes that you could not make calculated risks to get. So this is a time to take a leap of faith. I feel Virgo energy like just
It's such a read. I'm holding on
like
my hands, not to be like calling you out, Virgo.
if you are the type of person who feels like everything needs to be planned out, calculated, like if you feel like everything just needs to be safe and aligned in order for you to take a risk so that you can ensure that you don't fail, stop it.
Yeah.
Like that's stop.
Consider not that.
Consider doing the opposite,
Yeah.
which I know can feel very counterintuitive and uncomfortable. But yeah, this is your PSA that no matter how much time you give yourself, and no matter how many carefully planned things you try to get in place, you are always going to have and find more reasons not to do something. And then what? Like, and how's that working out?
Mm-hmm.
This is a call out to myself.
I
This
was
is
like,
how
I
I
have
call
so many
myself.
clients who could hear this.
How's that been working out for you?
Yeah.
I do want to say that I'm sure that there are benefits to doing this. Like, we wouldn't keep doing this if it wasn't working in our favor in some way, one of which being it might keep you comfortable. It might keep you feeling safe. But one of my best friends, Stephanie, which is funny because that's my actual name, and I'm not talking about myself. When I met her, oh my God, anytime we would think of something, anytime we'd be like, oh, what if we skipped class and drove to Berkeley to get hot dogs at Top Dog, which we did. But like, we would say,
And
there's only one way to find out. And that has become such a motto for me that gets me out of this like cyclical thinking of, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? Like, what if I look stupid? What if it's never like, what if it's great?
mm-hmm. So what if I
What
get
if,
hurt?
yeah, what if it's better than I could have ever expected?
Mm-hmm.
You're never thinking that. Like, or at least I'm not.
Yeah,
Again, when I
most people aren't. Our brains are not wired to. Nobody's brain is.
yeah,
Yeah.
which you know, that's fair. So, oh my God, it makes me think of when I was a substance use counselor. I would have clients like this who would say, what if I did this? Or what if this happens? And what if this happens? One time I just looked at my client and I said, so what?
Mm-hmm.
And then she was like, I don't know. What if this happens? What if this happens? And then I would just say, so what? And then like her homework for that week was to just stop her thoughts or respond to her thoughts by saying, so what? And I would hear her like just saying like, so what? So what? Like anytime, because it was a residential program. So she was there all the time. I was there all the time. But I think about it all the time because honestly, so what? Oh well. I will say one more thing about this card, because I am a death doula and I think about death and dying a lot. And I think about what it means to live a life that I will feel good about on my deathbed. If I have the privilege to be on a deathbed, um, anytime, I'm just reminding myself I'm going to die one day. And it's not like a cynical thing, but if I'm catching myself getting so caught up on making a decision or even drafting an email, oh my God, even drafting an email, even sending a text, even doing whatever, I remind myself, I use it as an opportunity to do a little death meditation or a little death mindfulness. And I envision myself on my deathbed and thinking, is this what I'm going to be thinking about on my deathbed? Is this going to matter to me when I'm dying? And usually the answer is no. Sometimes my brain will be like, well, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. To which I have to say, there's only one way to find out.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
So, two things for you. So what? And there's only one way to find out. And it, Bay Life. My
Mood.
three mottos. My three mottos. I may be from Long Beach, but I will always be from the Bay.
That's so
And
funny.
so that I have no idea what's going on in August,
Mhm.
but Shroot will probably tell us. That is the first card. What do you think, Shroot?
No, it's perfect because yeah, August astrology, it's not the worst or most, intense of the year, but it is definitely duking it out for the second spot, and it possibly winning for the second spot. So, and I also think that so April was definitely like the wildest astrology of the year, but I think one of the reasons why August feels so freaking overwhelming is because um it was primarily Leo season, and Leo energy is so expressed. And so it's something that it's hard to think around. It kind of takes up all the air in the room kind of thing. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and if you have a lot on your plate and obviously, things going on in the world is really overwhelming, like it can feel like it's hard to see beyond that or around that. And that transition into from that Leo energy of the sun, taking up everything um into Virgo, overthinking everything, trying to make sense of everything, trying to, analyze and categorize and make reason and logic out of everything. Um it can kind of lend us to again disconnect from ourselves, disconnect from the subconscious, the spiritual, the um intuition, the less reasonable, things. And one thing I really want to emphasize is that right now Saturn in the sky is in Pisces, and Saturn has to do with, the structures that uphold our society. Like if I'm ever talking about structures that uphold us, oppression, that's all in the category of Saturn in astrology. And so, um that could also be like the structures that uphold us. So like literally our muscular system, our skeletal system is all under Saturn. So it's like on a macro and a micro level, it's the structures. So Saturn is in Pisces. Saturn, does Pisces even know what a structure is? You know what I mean? Like Pisces is like cute structure you have there. What if I dissolved it? What if I subsumed it? What if I just completely am so ungovernable that like I don't even need to acknowledge your structure. Like that's Pisces. So Saturn is having a really tough time in Pisces. And also, like, if you are navigating your life, within this capitalist system, we have been trained to navigate our lives where we are rewarded by our rationality. In a myth of meritocracy, we are taught that rationality is going to be the key to upward mobility, to success, to advancing our career. And in many ways, that is true. We are rewarded for our rationality. But in this specific time that we're living in with Saturn and Pisces, the people who are at the leadership of our structures are not acting from a place of reason. Like, in fact, that is the last thing that people are acting from right now. People in charge of our society, they're not like they're coming from a completely irrational, delusional place. And I think it's a really important time to think about, is ration serving you? How far is it taking you, and where are the limits to your rationality? And so it's really powerful, this season as Virgo season, to lean into the opposite end of Virgo, which is Pisces. So lean into, sense-based pleasure, lean into, doing the irrational thing, feeling your irrational feelings, really like embracing all the parts of you that you can't categorize in a box and that you can't make sense of and reason and negotiate and organize. Like, um, and embrace that in other people. Like other people are probably gonna be acting very irrational this month in Virgo season. So just kind of remind yourself that that's such a essential part of being human too, is all of the irrational aspects of being human. And so just try to like remind yourself that those exist even in this world that claims that it rewards rationalism. And claims that it's centered around rationalism. Notice all the ways that that's just not true. And the other thing I wanted to say was in line with what Stevie was saying about so what, or only one way to find out. I have a version of that where my best friend, I was so scared to start this business, to move across the country. I had to make these really big life decisions for myself in 2019, and it also involved needing to put boundaries to my professors around my disability accommodations. I had to put boundaries with roommates. I had to just put boundaries up with people that I had previously never put those types of boundaries up before. And I had never asserted my own needs and my own sense of self that strongly before because I had never really been taught to or encouraged to or rewarded for doing that. And so I had never learned how to do that. And when I was like in this process where I was like, oh, I actually really like can't put this off anymore. I need to assert these boundaries. Um, I was so scared. I was like, I can't do this. Like, oh my God, like I'm so scared. And my friend was like, who's gonna beat your ass? And I was like, huh. Because, when you're a kid, you don't have agency. Kids are like the most oppressed class, right? Depending on your intersectionality, but like children as a whole are an oppressed class. Like they don't have agency. They don't have, autonomy, and control over their lives. We're completely at the mercy of the people in authority over us. And there is a threat that you're gonna get your ass beat to a certain extent for some people. And I it was such a powerful transformation for me to understand that part of stepping into adulthood and part of owning my decisions as an adult was understanding that nobody can beat my ass. Like, who's gonna beat my like, and that was so groundbreaking for me. I needed that spelled out for me because I didn't understand that. I didn't make that adjustment. And I think that for me, that was the most powerful question to ask myself when I get stuck on, decision making, or I get stuck on anxiety and rumination. I just, can ground myself really easily because, at the end of the day, I'm the boss of me. Like, I'm in charge. And um I can respect, the rules that I'm required to follow as an adult, but when it comes to my own autonomy and my own sense of governance with myself and how I treat myself and make decisions with myself, like, I'm not going to beat my ass. Who's going to beat my ass? Like, nobody. So I just wanted to offer that medicine from my best friend because that changed my life. And that's an important thing to remember when you're boxing yourself into all those boxes and you're feeling so trapped by your life and by what you feel like are not your decisions to make, is to think about that. So you know, what was it? F it, Bay Life? Is that what you said? I'm gonna beat your ass. Like, um, run through those questions and see what comes out.
I'll write them down in the show notes. So what? Only one way to find out
Yeah,
Bay life and who's gonna be true.
yeah.
Or I wonder. I'm like thinking about the flow of the questions. It's who's gonna beat your so what?
Amen.
There's only one way to find out, and
Bay Life.
Bay life.
We gotta put that on a shirt.
I'm sure it already exists.
Yeah. No, I meant those four.
Oh yeah, those four are commandments.
Mm-hmm. That's the Bleeding Hearts Club commandments right there.
Yeah, those are our community agreements. Oh, I love it. Okay, gorgeous. I want to know what journeys are y'all starting? I want to know.
Yeah.
Or what are you thinking about? What are you like actively talking yourself out of?
Yeah, let us know. Tell
Let
us
us
on
know.
Instagram, bleedingheartsclub.pod, or email us at bleedingheartsclub.pod@gmail.com.
Yeah,
And you can
cool.
tell us and ask us to keep it a secret. We'll keep it a secret. You can just use us as a confessional and as a way to yeet your truth into the world.
Mm,
And if you're scared, it. Bay life.
Bay life. I hope we have some Bay Area listeners.
Yeah, if you're from the Bay, tap in. I'm from Sacramento, so I won't claim that. But NorCal, where are we at?
Yay. Okay. Um, you ready for the next
Next
card?
card. Let's do it.
Okay, we pulled Justice reversed. I'm gonna show y'all upside, right side up.
Mhm.
This is
Go
what
for
it
it.
looks like. No. Okay, that's what it looks like. Um, in Nahuatl, it is what is it? Watili. Watili. Which I think translates more to like law and order. And in Spanish, it is La Justicia. And okay, on the card, this person in the middle is like this person who's judging you, I guess, or justicing you. And that I do not know how to say it in Nahuatl, but I know that it is the Lord of the curved obsidian blade.
Ooh.
Um, and at his feet, there are two people, one person who is being punished, and one person who I think is not being punished. It looks like the rope around that person's wrists are being cut by the obsidian blade. There's a lot going on. I really don't know how to describe it to you, but it is so beautiful. Again, check it out on Instagram or on YouTube. I wrote this in all caps. Just because you're on a new journey, like the card that we said before this, just because you're on a new journey with your new adventures does not mean you can run away from your problems or evade accountability. I'm dead. Like, just because you are on a journey doesn't mean you can forget about everyone else or everything else. You still have obligations and responsibilities. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but your actions impact the people around you. You do not exist in a silo.
You didn't just fall out of a coconut tree.
Yeah, you think you just fell out of a coconut tree? I channel Andrew every time I say that. But yes, I got to emphasize that. I don't know who I'm talking to, but sometimes I notice that when people get this like surge of energy and they're so excited for what's to come and they're ready to take it on, they just pretend that other people don't exist or that everything that came before that does not exist. And that is not true. You are not going to ever run away from your problems. They're just going to catch up. They're going to find you. You will
And they're
always,
gaining steam as they do it. Like,
yeah, legit. So I want to ask y'all, what are you hiding from? And what are you hiding from other people? And hoping that they don't find out or that you don't have to face it. The more you run away from it, the more power you give it. And honestly, when it does finally reach the surface, which it will, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be fun when you are constantly looking away or sweeping something under the rug or just avoiding or drowning or numbing. It will come to the surface. It's going to come get you. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is or who it is, but you can't run from it forever. What did I say? Oh, in my notes, I don't know who I'm talking to. I swear, I feel like it's someone so specific. But I wrote, are you self-sabotaging so that the situation blows up so you can use that as a cop out to get out of it without actually being vulnerable or being honest with yourself and whoever else is involved? That happens. It sure happens. I'm getting the sense that you're hoping something goes unnoticed, that you can just slip under the radar, or it can just be buried. But it's going to surface. I don't know. So, in terms of this justice card, this is a time for accountability, a time for consequences and rewards. I want it like, this is not just like a punishing thing. I am not trying to scold you fully. But there can be so many benefits to being honest. Sure, it might be painful to be honest. It might be painful to look at something that you have been turning away from, but the reward of doing so, the reward of acting in alignment and making value-based decisions can bring you so far. And you're not going to get there if you are, I don't know, going at it like this, I will say. The search for truth can be hard, can be uncomfortable, and it should be. Like, if it were easy, everyone would be doing it. everyone would be cured. We would live in such a different world, but that is just not the case. Doing the work, I don't know, some people might call it shadow work. Um, yeah, it takes you out of your comfort zone and it makes you contend with really long held thoughts and beliefs and patterns, cycles. You have to look at that in order to make different decisions. You have to be with that in order to do something different. In order to create new structures, you really have to dismantle the old ones. And you can't do that if you just build something else on top of it. That's just not going to work. I'm from the Bay. There are earthquakes.
Yep.
We are constantly, what is it, seismically retrofitting or whatever
Hmm.
buildings so that they don't collapse.
Hmm. NYC is built on marshes that still flood.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
time. Great. Mexico City is sinking.
Yeah.
Just a few
Yeah.
examples. um, yeah, I'm trying to think. This is an invitation for you to approach life in ways that align with your values and morals. Because sometimes when we make snap judgments or react, it is not from that place. It is not from that place. So give yourself time, give yourself grace. This is an opportunity for you to practice what you preach, especially when you're judging other people. Why are you judging them? Is it because you think that you are better than them? That you would never do something like that? Because I promise you probably would in different circumstances. And sometimes the thing that you don't like about other people say a lot about yourself because there's some part of you that actually aligns with that. And that's okay. Again, people teach us a lot about ourselves. So practice what you preach, live in alignment, even if it means that there are consequences that you don't like. You cannot escape those. Why would you? Like, what makes you so special? We all have to deal with the consequences of our actions and give yourself grace for making mistakes. Again, like, I'm not fully trying to scold y'all. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing, but give yourself grace for making mistakes, for potentially causing harm to other people, for harming yourself, and move with compassion and understanding and kindness, because the last thing you need is to add more guilt and shame into this mix. It's not going to make you a better person. You are not going to shame yourself into healing. You're not going to shame yourself into alignment or into becoming a better person. You're just human. And humans make mistakes. Humans act from very different foundations, different sources of energy, different wounds, different. What is the opposite of a wound? Like healed sources? You know what I mean.
Yeah. I don't know.
We
That's a
might
good
not always
question.
be consistent. We may not always be consistent, and that's okay. What matters is how we learn from our behaviors, our actions, our mistakes, and use that to inform how we move forward next. Anytime it happens. And again, mistakes are going to happen just because you know better. Sure, theoretically, it means you can do better, but you might always not always do better. So continuously give yourself grace. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that there.
So powerful. Oh, and so important. I think it's such a good reminder. It's very, all the Virgos are like, yeah, hello. We've been trying to tell all of our other friends this for ages. Like, you can't run away from reality. Like, so as much as, we talked about suspending the rational in the last card, it's like, it's still there though. Like, it's still something to think about. So there's two major transits that I think are really tied into this. And the first one is that we are in the thick of a Mercury retrograde. And that Mercury retrograde has been through, Virgo as well as Leo. And I think that um the energy you talked about of getting so filled with a new idea that we're running off, to chase that, and we forget everything and everyone around us. That's very Leo energy because, again, like I said, Leo's that sun. It just takes up everything in the room. And so, um, yeah, like that's, I think, a part of this Mercury retrograde. And I think it's really important for us to think about, like, okay, it's likely that in the face of this Mercury retrograde, which started August 5th and it ends August 28th, but there's a little bit of a shadow before and after that. Like, it's a good time to check in, how have your priorities shifted, since August started? And what are you paying attention to? And what is important to you right now? And who is important to you right now? And why? And are there things that were important to you, or in the long run, they're important to you, but they're lower on the docket now? And, what are the consequences of that? If you started this, let's say you started a new relationship in August and you are just all in on this relationship and you forget that, you have friends who care about you and love you. Um, what are the consequences of diving so deep into this new thing that you lose track of keeping up with those relationships, like that kind of thing. So just think about, what are your priorities, and um, is there a more measured, level-headed approach that you can take to them as we wind down from this Mercury retrograde, and especially as we move into September Virgo season? Like, is there a more measured approach that you can take to your priorities? And can you find a little bit more balance? So that's a big piece of this puzzle. The other one is a little bit of a doozy, where Venus in the sky, is going to approach, by early September, in the earliest days of September. Venus is going to go ahead and be conjunct um, the South Node in Libra. And so before it gets to the South Node in Libra, it's going to, in these like next 2 weeks, it's going to be opposite Neptune and then conjunct the South Node in Libra. So when it's opposite Neptune, that's going to happen in Virgo and Pisces. So Venus in Virgo, Neptune in Pisces. We're definitely going to see a huge piece of that, like distortions and or unrealistic projections that we have on our relationships. And so what is your motive, what is the lens through which you're looking through your relationships? What is the lens through which you're looking at your relationships through? Like, um, and what is the subconscious drivers motivating how you look at your relationships? What are the wounds that you may be looking through? So those are likely going to be very activated, and it's very likely that it's going to be difficult for you to even answer this question. And so I would really ground into, what can you definitively say is true in your relationships? What does the evidence show in your relationships? And not just your relationship to other people, but your relationship to yourself, your relationship to your society, your community, the world around you, the earth around you, like all these different layers of relation. Like, what can you definitively say is true? And to do your best to kind of ground into that reality, and ground into what you know to be true. And it's also a good season to, if you are unclear on something in your relationships, to ask. So, assumptions, bad season for assumptions. Assumptions can be costly this month because everybody is operating from there, or maybe not everybody, but many of us are going to be operating from our projections and from our distortions. And you may trigger something in somebody with your distortion, they may trigger something in you. So, asking questions for clarification is a really powerful activity this month. And as Venus moves into Libra and conjuncts the South Node in September, then the South Node has to do with our pre-existing entrenched patterning around whatever section of our chart the South Node is moving through. And so Venus conjunct the South Node, especially in Venus's home sign of Libra, speaks to, where do you lose track of like the space that you take up, or where do you deflate your sense of self in order to harmonize and balance what's going on with everybody else, and where are you losing track of the kind of cost of that. So it's like, I know from personal example, like one of my coping strategies when I don't feel safe is to take up as little space as possible. When I have a fear of a security in a relationship, I tend to deflate my needs. I tend to take up as little space as possible. And so what happens when I do that is I'm no longer taking accountability or even taking account that even if I'm trying to take up almost no space, I still take up space. I'm still a person. Like, um, so I lose track of my ability to accurately assess the space that I'm taking up. Hi, BB. When I deny that space exists. Sorry, there's a cat cameo. For anybody listening, one of Stevie's three cats. So yeah, so it's like, you know, you're not able to accurately assess the space that you take up if you are denying yourself the space that you need to take up. And so um that could be a pattern. That's one example of it, but essentially it's like the lack of self awareness because of your self denial in your relationships can then negatively affect your relationships in ways that you can't even conceive because you're not even opening yourself up to the possibility that it could happen. So that's a really important thing to kind of check in with yourself this like next couple weeks, and just make sure that you are trying to stay rooted in the facts when it comes to your perception of what's going on and to ask questions for clarification where you are unable to find those facts. Yeah,
Dang.
it's not going to be fun.
Yeah. Oh my God, not the time to make assumptions.
It's
Our imagination can take us to so many things.
running wild this month.
What a practice. Something to think about. Okay. Okay. I'm taking that in.
Yeah.
I have like two cats that don't get along that are like in on both sides of me right now. So I'm like, okay. Okay. They're loafing up respectively. So,
Go.
okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, pal. Thanks for that. Those reminders.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking. I'm thinking of like, we really cut off opportunities to grow and connect with people because we don't think we're worthy of
Mm.
making requests, making asks. Ugh, but there's only one way to find out, y'all. There's only
Mm-hmm.
one. And Bay Life. You ready for this last card, pal?
Yeah. Let's do it. I was
Okay.
excited for this one.
Hey.
Some good news, or at least something to hold on to.
Yeah, I would feel like this is good. I pulled the High Priestess. This is what it looks like. I know.
That's beautiful.
In Nahuatl, her name is Siwat Lamakaski. Siwat Lamakaski. And in Spanish, it's La Sacerdotisa. Yeah. Yeah, good enough. It's represented by Chicome Coatl. So 7 is Chicome and Coatl is serpent. She is like the female aspect of maize, corn, which is like very symbolic of life in indigenous everything in Mexico. She's the patroness of agriculture. She also presides over like food and drink and just the well-being of humankind. She is representing the search for truth and yeah, is tied to this subconscious mind because there's a lot going on in our subconscious mind that like we don't even really know that we have access to. Um, she's a teacher, she's a guide, and she teaches us to remember that there is more to the world and to life than what we think. There's more, there's always more than what I don't want to say our little brains, but like our singular self can fully think of and comprehend. Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's so much in our dreams, I feel. I don't know who dreams. I don't know what y'all's dreams are like, but I don't know. Sometimes it feels very like spiritual. I don't know if anybody ever wakes up and they're like, that dream feels different from other dreams. Or you wake up and you're so tired and you're like, where did I go? Where did I go in my freaking dreams last night? Yeah, this card is about spiritual connection, building a relationship with your intuition, knowledge, and wisdom. And I feel like so much of this right now is tuning into your wisdom or your intuition and your wisdom, because we do have wisdom. Doesn't matter how old we are, it doesn't matter what or what not. Wait, what? It doesn't matter what we have experienced or what we haven't experienced. We all come with wisdom, ancestral wisdom, our own personal wisdom that we're gaining like in this lifetime. So tune into your intuition, journal, meditate, play, even daydream. Allow yourself to just tap in. Oh my God, have you seen that one person? I forget what his name is, but I think he's in finance, but like every day he'll post some like motivational video and he's going to work and he's like, I'm absolutely locked in. I will find him. I love him
Yeah.
so much.
We'll link him in the show notes.
um yeah, I love him so much, but I feel like locking in to play,
Mm.
locking into daydreaming. Really tap into that. And I wonder what people's, I don't know, comfort with being, I guess, loose and free and playful and creative. And I wonder what that brings up for people. Because I feel like I hear a lot of folks say, I don't know how to play. And I'm one of them for sure. Like, I really struggle to play or to be playful. And I think it's because a lot of us weren't allowed to. Like, we weren't allowed to play, or we weren't encouraged to play, or we were taught that there is no value in play because we should be working, we should be productive, we should have specific outcomes in the downtime that we have. And so we don't prioritize it, we don't see the good in it. So, yeah, maybe also think about what messages you received about being playful or being creative. Yeah, this time is like focusing on feeling and experiencing rather than thinking and planning. And yeah, I just want to leave that there. Well, come back to this guy, the fool. Look, he's all loose, he's all playful, he's running around with his chihuahua and playing his flute. That could be us. That could be us. And it is us. But yeah. Okay, that's my last card.
Ooh, that's such a good card. And that's so like such an important reminder, especially during Virgo season, because we get so in our heads. This is my favorite thing to talk about during Virgo season, which is that Virgo energy, underrated element of Virgo energy is that it is about the mind-body connection. It's not about the mind. It is about the like transcendental relationship that we have to our body, and that is what makes us unique as human beings, is that connection that we have to our mind and our body, and that, for example, there's a reason that Virgo rules your digestive system is because the gut brain axis, if you've heard of that, is Virgo. Basically, that's Virgo energy. It's this idea that, the literal microbiome, the bacteria that exists in our gut, has a direct influence on the way that our brain works, and vice versa. They have a relationship to each other. And that is very much Virgo energy. And so, in this rational, world, we are taught that in this colonized world, we're taught that the body is a site to be colonized. We're taught that our body is not a reliable source. Our body is easy to succumb to temptation, right? To succumb to sin, to act in ways that are irrational, and that need to be controlled. We also, under the system of patriarchy, we feminize the body, and we say the body, that's another reason the body needs to be controlled, is because it's, again, irrational. It's all of these, we say the kind of negative connotations that we ascribe to women, the earth, we ascribe those to our bodies, and we derive a sense of achievement and accomplishment in our mind's ability to control our bodies. And what that does is it distorts our relationship to our mind body connection. And so, if anybody with Virgo placements, if they're going through it, one of the first things I ask them is, do you have digestive issues? And everybody looks at me like shook within an inch of their lives, because they all do. And they're like, how do you know that? And I'm just like, because Virgo is not about the mind. Virgo is about the mind body connection. And if you are so rooted in the mind because you are rewarded by our society and you are told by our society to be rooted in the mind, if you really drink the Kool-Aid on that one, then you lose your connection to your body. And one of the ways that that shows up is through digestive issues. And so, like, um, it's really important to connect with your body. And, that is what play does. Play is what connects us to our body. We engage with our body when we play. And even if it's like, let's say you're playing a video game. So it's like, are you really engaging with your body? You're on a computer clicking buttons or whatever, you're on a controller clicking buttons. It's like, yeah, you are. You actually are engaging your body. It is a mind body connection to play video games, to play sports, to engage in a hobby. Any of these activities are all mind body activities. And so that is the reason that it is so important to do that during Virgo season and to rekindle your relationship to your body, because your body has so much wisdom for you. And the reason that it's devalued in society is because when you are listening to the wisdom that comes from your body, you're not like a perfect colonial subject. You're not conformed to buy things. Like, you're not looking for safety and security from the consumer marketplace. You're looking for safety and security in your own relationship to your body and your own body's wisdom. And so, you know maybe the wisdom that your body has to share isn't relevant or useful to your participation in the society that you're in, but it is so relevant and useful to you, and so valuable in terms of information that it has to share with you. And so, one of the best ways, if you have trouble, being grounded in your body, being idle, especially your mind being idle, and being tapped into what do you feel in your body. Hello, cat. Um, like, if you have trouble connecting to that, then play is one of the strongest places to start, because I know that people find that, like, oh, if I do mindfulness, if I do meditation, I get more anxious, it makes me more unsafe feeling. Then it's like, that's totally fine. Like, play is such a strong place to start, or different activities that engage your senses. I know a lot of people love horror movies for that reason. They love the exhilaration of being scared, because that is, again, it's a sensation you feel in your body. And so, doing what you can to take an active role in exposing yourself to things that activate your senses, activate that mind body connection, and give you a sense of connectedness to yourself. And so, yeah, play is like such a powerful way to do that. Or, lighting incense, lighting a candle, um, looking at beautiful stuff visually, sensory based things. Like, it's like you could just play with your different five senses, or you could just play like activity wise. But I really encourage people to lean into that, because spending too much time in your head um genuinely can make you like sick as a person health wise. And like, it's just, there's so much value and wisdom that our body has to offer us if you only allow it to. And it's a process that's not something that happens overnight. You can't just like that's the other thing too, is our body, our mind can exist in the past and in the future as well as the present. And in fact, it's kind of difficult to stay present in the mind, but our body exists only in the present. And so, in order for our mind to be on board with our body, we have to get into the present moment. And so that's why it's like meditation, mindfulness, play, breath work, any of these types of activities, they're all going to require you to drop into the present moment. And so the last thing I'll say is, like, this is a good month to be bored if you can. And in fact, it's probably the hardest month to be bored, is Virgo season. But boredom inspires so much inner creativity and wisdom that we would never have known was within us. But that inspiration strikes when you give yourself the time and space to not be constantly taking in stimuli for your brain. um, you can get inspiration, and it can kind of help you on that new beginning that you're on, and help you on this journey that you're on. So try to, if you can, schedule in some time to be bored, and also schedule in some time to cultivate safety around that boredom. Because I think if we're so in our heads, especially with the smartphones, and our attention, is the commodity that our society is built off of now. It's our attention. Um, it can be really hard to, like, being bored can feel really unsafe to us because it's very unfamiliar to us nowadays. And so, cultivating a practice of boredom is a really powerful exercise just to try during Virgo season, because you never know what it'll bring you. And yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Wow, to be bored.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying about like tying in safety and boredom because I feel like a lot of people keep themselves busy because when they're not, they have a lot of time to think.
Mhm.
And all those thoughts that we try to avoid, all the things that we don't want to think about, that's when they start to creep up. And that's also why, ooh, we don't want to be bored. Like we want to feel good all the time,
Mhm.
like all the time, instant
Yeah.
gratification. So that boredom also means time. So, yeah, safety. Do what you got to do to feel safe and comforted. Not comfortable,
Mhm.
but comforted by whatever it is that comes up in this time that you don't have anything else to do. Wow. Hooray. We did it.
Yay. Well, that's our conclusion to this episode of Bleeding Hearts Club. Any other thoughts before we wrap up, or?
No, I'm so happy. I'm so excited.
This was a good one. I love this conversation. I think I could talk about this for forever. But we would love it if you have been enjoying our podcast, whether this is your first episode or if you've been with us on this journey, if you could leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, or um, on our YouTube, if you could comment. We would very much appreciate that. It would help us out. The Apple Podcasts review, all those types of things. And feel free to email us. Let us know what you think, and whether we can share that with others or not. Um, we would love to hear it. So, yeah. Where can we find you, Stevie? I remember
Mhm.
today.
Oh my God, when you were saying all that stuff, I also wanted to say like and subscribe.
I know,
Ring that
yeah. Give us a
bell.
thumbs up, subscribe, follow us.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. Sorry, my cat just like moved my computer real quick. They're all after me. It's like it's not dinner time. It really is not. They have like 2 more hours,
They don't
but
know. They don't
they
care.
they don't care. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at cosmic dot return. Yeah.
I love
What
it.
about you, Root?
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook at Shrutrees. SHRUTREES. And you can follow us, the Bleeding Hearts Club pod on Instagram. We would love to hear from you. Join the community. Um, And you can also book a reading with us if you love the way that we approach astrology and tarot, and if you love the vibe of the tarot astrology portion of this podcast. We have plenty to say about your own chart and your own tarot read. So feel free to book a reading with us. Our reading is called Dance with Datura, and the reason we named it that is because the goal of our readings is to give you that safe space to process your shadow self, to hold space for the all parts of you. In totality and wholeness, and to figure out how best to navigate the season of life that you're in, and to bloom even in the dark. So you can find a link to book that or check that out in our show notes, and we would love to read with you. This is like, we're so passionate about this joint work, and there's so much incredible medicine that you can find when you hold that space for yourself. And like, just like how, Stevie's tarot practice helped me cultivate my own relationship to my shadow self and my own intuition. We would love to offer that to you as well. So, um, yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.
All right, y'all. See you next Tuesday.
Amen.
Love ya.
Love you.